by insisting he accept their lies as real, by insisting he was never to his people tied, by dictating exactly what he might feel, by permitting bawdy joy but never pride. They believed a lion could be brought to heel, that a lion could from his courage be pride, that the lion himself would learn to kneel, that a lion would not care even if his line died, that the lion himself would accept such a deal. In the end, it was only to themselves they had lied.
Shop.isawaya.com. Everything you buy supports Qnotables, the place where people talk freely no matter what. Check out our Qn honey pot, a jar of yummy honey that's as strong as your voice. Put it on toaster and tea. It's not just honey, it's freedom in every bite. Then there's Qn butter, a smooth handmade skin cream that makes you feel good while you fight for what's right. Awesome wooden pieces for display only. Hang them up or set them out. They're for showing off Qn's tough spirit. Want to help even more? Get a proto membership. So go to shop.isawaya.com now and grab some goodies. Help Qnotables keep free speech alive, and let's keep the ideas flowing loud and free.
All reports can be found on Q Research or Qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here.
From the Q Research Boards, May 28, 2026. Tonight's top story begins in the Middle East, where U.S. forces carried out a defensive strike against an Iranian ground control station near Bandar Abbas. Officials said Iran was preparing another one-way attack drone, and 4 Iranian drones were also shot down near the Strait of Hormuz. Washington's message is clear. The United States is willing to negotiate, but attacks on U.S. forces and threats to commercial shipping will be met directly. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is now warning Iran that diplomacy remains available, but attacks on U.S. personnel, U.S. assets, or shipping lanes will not be tolerated. Rubio's warning comes as negotiations continue over a possible ceasefire and a nuclear framework. The administration is drawing a line. Talks can continue, but the Strait of Hormuz stays open, and American forces stay protected. At the same time, an Iranian lawmaker says a draft U.S. memo includes a proposed $300 billion reconstruction package for Iran if a final deal is reached. The reported package includes sanctions relief, economic reconstruction, and a framework tied to Iran's nuclear program. No final deal has been announced, but the number itself shows the scale of what may be on the table. Inside Iran, the regime is also moving toward a more permanent internet control system using Chinese technology. The goal is to restrict public access to the open internet while preserving controlled access for approved institutions and regime-connected users. That would push Iran closer to a Chinese-style censorship model and deepen Tehran's control over public information during a time of war pressure and unrest. China is also making aggressive moves in the South China Sea. Beijing says its military used naval, air, and electronic measures to drive away the Dutch frigate De Ruyter near the disputed Paracel Islands. China accused the ship of entering contested waters illegally. The incident adds another flashpoint to the South China Sea, where China continues challenging Western naval presence and freedom of navigation. The global pressure is not limited to war zones. The United Nations is facing a serious cash crisis, with officials warning that unpaid dues and shrinking aid budgets are threatening core operations. Secretary General Antonio Guterres has warned member states that the organization cannot function normally without predictable funding. The warning lands as war, migration, disease outbreaks, and humanitarian crises continue stacking up worldwide. In Africa, Uganda has temporarily closed its border with Congo after suspected cases of the rare Bundibugyo strain of Ebola surged in eastern Congo. Health officials are trying to contain the outbreak before it spreads further across the region. Uganda is limiting crossings and requiring isolation for emergency travel from Congo. This is a public health story with regional security implications. Back home, the Justice Department has opened a criminal investigation into Jean Carroll over possible perjury connected to her civil lawsuits against President Trump. The probe centers on testimony involving outside funding connected to her legal case. No charges have been filed, but the investigation is a major turn in one of the most politically charged legal fights against President Trump. A former senior CIA official is also facing federal charges after investigators say they found more than 300 gold bars, millions of dollars in cash, and luxury watches connected to a massive theft case. Prosecutors say the former official stole more than $40 million in gold bars and government funds. The case is now moving through federal court in Virginia and raises serious questions about internal controls around people with top-level access. The corruption and fraud theme continues, with a Biden-era EPA grant tied to Power Forward Communities, a coalition that included Rewiring America, where Stacey Abrams previously held an advisory role. A $2 billion green energy grant awarded under the Biden administration is under scrutiny, and federal authorities have reviewed whether proper oversight was followed. The central issue is how an enormous taxpayer-funded award was approved and who benefited. Federal agencies also reported about $186 billion in improper payments during fiscal year 2025. That is an increase of about $24 billion from the year before. The largest problem areas include Medicare, Medicaid, tax credits, food stamps, and other federal benefit programs. This is not a small accounting error. This is a federal spending failure measured in hundreds of billions of dollars. The Small Business Administration says it referred 562,000 suspected fraudulent pandemic-era loans to the Treasury Department for collection. The referral totals about $22 billion and is described by the agency as its largest referral package on record. Officials are also pointing to broader estimates that pandemic loan fraud may reach far higher. The cleanup from COVID-era spending is still nowhere near finished. White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller says eliminating fraud and improper payments could dramatically change the federal budget debate. His comments come as the government faces a confirmed $186 billion improper payments problem, along with ongoing investigations into welfare and pandemic-era fraud. The administration is framing fraud enforcement as both a law and order issue and a spending control issue. Miller is also targeting welfare fraud in Minnesota, where he has called out alleged abuse involving Somali-linked fraud networks and the American benefits system. His argument is direct. The welfare system was built on public trust, and fraud destroys that trust. This issue now sits at the center of a larger fight over immigration, government spending, and benefit program integrity. DHS has also directed ICE attorneys to ramp up asylum-related fraud cases. A memo calls for action against immigration attorneys accused of filing false asylum claims in court. The move signals a broader crackdown on fraudulent immigration filings and the networks that help move them through the system. The administration is treating asylum fraud as a legal, financial, and national security problem.
Looking for a fast way to track what's moving online right now? Head over to Qnotables.com. It's a centralized index of notable clips, headlines, and references being shared across the community, organized for quick browsing. Use it to spot patterns, pull links, and build your own research list. Qnotables.com. Browse the notables, verify the facts, stay informed. All reports can be found on Q Research or Qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here.
From the Q Research Boards, May 28, 2026. Border authorities in Texas apprehended a group of illegal aliens near Eagle Pass, including Chinese nationals dressed in camouflage and attempting to evade detection. The arrests took place in Maverick County, with assistance from Texas DPS tracking assets. The incident raises fresh security concerns along a border corridor already under heavy pressure. DHS officials are also considering whether to suspend or limit immigration and customs processing at airports in sanctuary cities. The proposal would target cities that refuse cooperation with federal immigration enforcement. If implemented, the move could affect international travel into some of the nation's largest airports and force sanctuary jurisdictions into a direct confrontation with federal immigration authority. In Maryland, Governor Wes Moore signed legislation aimed at banning devices and firearm configurations that officials say can turn handguns into illegal machine guns. Gun rights groups call it a Glock ban and are already challenging it in court. The fight now moves from the State House to the legal system, where Second Amendment challenges are expected to be central. California is also moving forward with AB 2624, a bill dealing with privacy protections for immigration support service providers. Opponents call it the Stop Nick Shirley Act and say it could chill investigative reporting around fraud and immigration nonprofits. The fight is now about whether California is protecting vulnerable workers or shielding politically connected organizations from scrutiny. California Governor Gavin Newsom is also targeting payments connected to the Trump administration's Anti-Weaponization Compensation Fund. Newsom says the state will impose a 100% tax on payments from the nearly $1.8 billion fund. That sets up another legal and political battle over January 6th. Pardons, settlements, and whether a state can effectively confiscate federal compensation payments through taxation. California's governor race is also heating up. Former Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra is among the leading candidates in recent polling. Becerra is campaigning on affordability, state leadership, and protecting what he calls the California dream. The primary is entering its final stretch, with voters deciding who advances to the November runoff. Governor Ron DeSantis is moving in a different direction in Florida, calling for a special session focused on property tax relief. The push comes as homeowners continue facing pressure from taxes, insurance, and inflation. DeSantis is framing the issue as a direct affordability fight and a way to keep Florida from becoming another high-cost state. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says he will fight teen takeovers by holding social media platforms accountable. The issue follows repeated scenes of large youth gatherings, street disruptions, and public safety concerns in the city. Johnson is turning attention toward the online systems used to organize these events, while critics argue the city still needs stronger enforcement on the ground. On election and political integrity, Democrats are distancing themselves from Maine Senate candidate Graham Plattner after controversies involving past online posts and a tattoo critics linked to Nazi imagery. Some party figures now warn the fight over Plattner could become a broader Democratic civil war. The controversy threatens what Democrats once viewed as a key pickup race against Senator Susan Collins. In New Jersey, congressional candidate Adam Hamawi is facing renewed scrutiny over past connections to Omar Abdelrahman, known as the Blind Sheikh. Hamawi has said his past involvement was humanitarian or translation-related, but critics say voters deserve a full accounting. The issue has become a flashpoint in New Jersey's 12th District Democratic primary. Reports also say Adam Hamawi previously traveled with Omar Abdelrahman and served as a translator before the Blind Sheikh was convicted in connection with terrorism. Hamawi has not been charged with wrongdoing. The resurfaced history is now drawing national attention as he campaigns for a seat in Congress. President Trump held a cabinet meeting as negotiations with Iran remains uncertain and regional tensions continued to rise. The meeting covered foreign policy, immigration, fraud enforcement, and domestic priorities. Trump said any Iran deal must be strong enough to protect U.S. interests and keep key waterways open. President Trump also praised outgoing Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard for her work reforming the intelligence community. Gabbard has submitted her resignation effective June 30th. Her departure follows a high-profile tenure focused on restructuring, transparency, and changing how intelligence reaches the president. Gabbard's coming departure has triggered questions about what final actions may come before she leaves ODNI. Trump thanked her publicly during the cabinet meeting, and her resignation is set to take effect June 30th. The question now is whether more intelligence reforms or disclosures come before that deadline. President Trump has nominated Ohio Appeals Court Judge Matthew Byrne to serve on the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Ohio. Byrne was strongly recommended by Vice President J.D. Vance and Ohio Republican senators. His nomination now goes to the Senate for confirmation.
Don'tDeleteMeBro.com. 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 Share the site with others. Don'tDeleteMeBro.com. 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 Share the site with others. Don'tDeleteMeBro.com.
Start your day right with Ahoy the Ship Show, where real talk meets real energy. No fluff.
All reports
no
can be
filter,
found on
just-
Q Research or Qnotables.com. Notables do not equal endorsements. We are researchers who deal in open source information, reasoned argument, and dank memes. We do battle in the sphere of ideas and ideas only. We neither need nor condone the use of force in our work here.
From the Q Research Boards, May 28, 2026. President Trump is also publicly backing Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan as Armenia moves closer to the West. Secretary of State Marco Rubio recently signed a strategic partnership agreement with Armenia in Yerevan. The move comes as Russia warns Armenia against deeper alignment with the United States and Europe. The U.S.-backed South Caucasus Corridor strategy is drawing attention as Washington deepens ties with Armenia and pushes regional connectivity. The proposed corridor would connect Azerbaijan, Armenia, Turkey, and broader east-west trade routes. Supporters say it could reduce Russian and Iranian influence while opening new economic channels across Eurasia. Scotland's parliament has backed another push for a new independence referendum by asking London for a Section 30 order. That legal mechanism would allow Holyrood to hold another vote on leaving the United Kingdom. London is not expected to approve the request, setting up another constitutional standoff inside the UK. Spanish police raided offices tied to the ruling Socialist Party as part of a widening corruption investigation. The probe has reached figures close to Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, with allegations involving senior political networks and former leadership circles. Opposition leaders are now demanding early elections as the scandal grows. Cuba's government is accusing Secretary of State Marco Rubio of driving an aggressive U.S. pressure campaign against Havana. The dispute escalated after U.S. prosecutors unveiled charges tied to the 1996 shootdown of civilian exile aircraft. Rubio says the United States is focused on confronting the communist system in Cuba. A Chinese bulk cargo ship has arrived in Havana carrying 15,000 tons of rice for Cuba. Cuban officials thanked Beijing and said the shipment would be distributed across the island. The delivery comes as Cuba faces deep food shortages, blackouts, and growing international pressure. Ukrainian prosecutors say recruitment officials were involved in a mobilization fraud scheme that listed hundreds of fake conscripts. Records included deceased individuals and prisoners as part of inflated recruitment numbers. Several officers have been arrested as Ukraine continues struggling with manpower demands. In Europe, a Belgian court has ruled that even factually based remarks can still qualify as criminal hate speech, depending on how they are presented. The case involved anti-migration activist Dries van Langenhove. Free speech advocates say the ruling criminalizes truthful political speech, while the court treated the remarks as incitement. In the tech and national security lane, an American journalist, Thomas Paquin II, has been charged with acting as an unregistered agent for China. Federal filings say he worked to connect Chinese handlers with a U.S. government employee. His attorney says he is not charged with spying or mishandling classified information and will fight the allegations in court. A bipartisan group of lawmakers is moving to preserve the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, better known as CISA. Critics on the right argue the agency was involved in online censorship and election-related information control. Supporters say CISA is still needed for cyber defense as AI-driven threats grow. The fight is over whether CISA remains a cybersecurity shield or becomes an information control weapon. The U.S. Space Force has awarded SpaceX a $2.29 billion contract to build the Space Data Network backbone. The system is designed to securely connect military sensors, weapons platforms, and satellite systems around the globe. The prototype is expected by the end of 2027 and will support next-generation missile defense. The Energy Department is moving forward with plans to provide more than 20 metric tons of high-assay, low-enriched uranium, known as HALEU, for advanced nuclear reactors. HALEU is critical for many next-generation reactor designs. The move is part of a broader effort to rebuild American nuclear capacity and reduce dependence on foreign fuel supply chains. The Kansas City National Security Campus remains central to America's nuclear enterprise. Federal oversight documents say the facility produces or procures more than 80% of the non-nuclear components used in U.S. nuclear weapon systems. The site is expanding as the country modernizes its nuclear deterrent. The Trump administration's $8.9 billion Intel investment has turned into a major paper gain. Intel previously announced the government bought shares at $20.47 each, and the current market price is far higher. Based on today's trading price, that stake is now worth well over $50 billion on paper. President Trump says his administration saved the American cryptocurrency industry after years of pressure from regulators under Gary Gensler. Trump is now promising a lasting digital asset market structure that keeps crypto innovation inside the United States. The message is aimed at builders, investors, and firms that previously looked overseas. And finally, tonight's closing note. The through line in this show is control. Control of shipping lanes, control of borders, control of courts, control of speech, control of money, control of intelligence, control of technology. The major stories tonight all point back to the same question. Who is allowed to hold power? And who is finally being forced to answer for how that power was used?
Every voice matters. The power of free speech is more important than ever. Imagine a place where you can share your thoughts freely, explore new ideas, and engage in meaningful conversations anonymously. With online anonymity, you can express yourself without fear of judgment. It's about freedom, creativity, and connection. Join the conversation that matters. Embrace your voice. Celebrate your freedom. Visit 8kun.top today. That's 8kun.top.
That's all for now. Stay alert, stay informed, and never hand your thinking over to anyone on a screen, including me. God bless you, God bless our troops, and God bless the United States of America. See you soon.